So let me set the scene. I was leading a nonprofit, and for this nonprofit, we rented spaces for our events, spaces we didn't own. And it was one of the days of those big events, and I get a call, and it's the building administrator of the rental space, and he was livid. So apparently, people in our group had been using rooms that we were not allowed to use. And in the prep days leading up to the event, they'd also left some of the rooms in total disarray. So, to be more specific, we were using a school. So, it functioned as a school during the day, and then we were there at night prepping for this weekend event. So, the administrator was furious, and the teachers whose rooms we'd been in were legitimately upset. I used to be a public school teacher, and if someone had come into my classroom in the evening and messed stuff up, I would have been upset too. So that anger was going to the administrator, and then he was transferring it right to me. And the truth was, I hadn't been there the night before. My coordinator had been running the things on site. So I'm on this call. I'm frustrated that it happened. I'm annoyed that I'm getting the call. And my response is defensive because now I'm bearing the full weight of his frustration. So I found myself saying, I'm sorry, sir, I wasn't there last night, but I will find out what happened and I will make sure that it does not happen again. Now, here's the question. Why did I feel the need to say I wasn't there last night? It's subtle, but that moment was just pure self preservation. It was me trying to shift the blame off myself, the leader, right? To avoid taking on someone else's anger that was happening right there in the moment. But friends, this isn't leadership, okay? This is blame shifting. And we do it, right? We see it in other leaders all the time, and you've probably experienced it. Maybe you've called someone to address a problem, or you finally built up the courage to give hard feedback to your employee, and that person responds with excuses or defensiveness, and it only makes things worse. So, in the name of protecting ourselves, we end up looking smaller or weaker or more immature. So, why do we even do it? What are we afraid of? And the big question, what great things, what growth, what trust are blame shifting and excuse making keeping us from? So, that's what we're going to dig into today. When things go wrong, our brains are wired to ask, who's responsible for this? So we'll take my house, for example. I will be in one room, and from somewhere down the hall, I hear crying, usually loud, usually sudden, like the dramatic kind. If you have little kids, you know exactly what I mean. But before I even think to ask, are you okay? What comes out of my mouth is, what happened? Which, if I'm honest, is mom code for who did it? So our brains do this everywhere. It does it. We do it at work too. So when someone comes to us with a complaint or with a mistake, our instinct is to figure out where to place the responsibility. And psychologists call this the self-serving bias, which basically says that we tend to credit our wins to our effort, but our failures to either bad luck or other people. And it's not just ego, it's this sense of survival. And blame gives us an illusion of control. And research even shows that the more powerless or the more vulnerable we feel, the stronger that instinct actually gets. But what are we actually trying to protect when we deflect blame? Is it our reputation, our credibility, maybe our competence? The irony is that avoiding responsibility to protect those things is exactly what makes us lose them. So let's go back to my example from the top of the episode when I said to the administrator, I'm sorry, I wasn't there. What I meant was, please don't think I'm a bad leader. I wanted him to see that it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't the problem. But here's the truth. He doesn't care about my leadership. He didn't care about my leadership insecurities. What did he care about? He cared about his school, his teachers. And when I said I wasn't there, it didn't reassure him. It probably made him think, wait, she wasn't there? Shouldn't she have known? She clearly doesn't have tabs on anything going on. So my self-protective answer didn't actually protect me, just made me look bad, and it didn't make him feel any better. It did not solve any of the problems he called me to address. So where in your leadership might you be slipping into this kind of self-preservation? Where are you more focused on being right than on owning your leadership responsibility? Ooh, ouch. Sorry. And maybe you're thinking also, I'm not sorry, but maybe you're thinking, Kara, but that's not fair. Like I shouldn't have to take the fall for my team's mistakes. And you know what, friend? You're right. It's not fair. Leadership rarely is. But fairness is not our goal. Our goal is growth. It's getting better. It's not making that same mistake again. It's using that failure as a tool. Danny Meyer says, I just love this quote. It's one of my favorites. He says, the road to success is paved by mistakes well handled. Okay. The road to success is paved by mistakes well handled. So if your team or your employee makes a big mistake, let's even say a big, ugly public mistake, I hate to break it to you, but if they work for you, they are your responsibility. Every mistake, every missed deadline, every miscommunication, it all falls under your leadership. And I mean, that doesn't mean you do the work for them or that you make excuses for them, but it does mean that you own the environment, right? Like the expectations, the culture, the policies and procedures, everything that either enables them to succeed or lets them stumble. And so many of these mistakes come back to things, in all fairness, that you couldn't have predicted, or gaps in your leadership or communication that you wouldn't have even known unless that mistake revealed it. So that's a good thing, right? It doesn't mean that you're a bad leader. It means that you are a human. And you want to know the most relatable thing to other humans? Being human. No one thinks that you're superhuman. No one expects you to be superhuman. And if you are holding yourself to this kind of unattainable standard as a leader, I could just say, like, snap out of it. But you aren't alone in that. We all do this, and it can feel so crushing. And I just don't want that for you. I want you to feel free of that. And one of the things I do to enable leaders to snap out of that is I send out a weekly email. I send it to hundreds of leaders, and it's meant to not only equip you to lead with confidence, but to remind you that you are not alone. What you face day to day is seen. And there is a way to grow little by little without this burden of pressure to be perfect that we put on ourselves. So, my friend, go to heycaralist.com/newsletter and get on that weekly email. It goes out every Thursday. And I promise it's probably the fourth best email newsletter that exists. See, I'm just shedding the pressure and perfection for myself. Okay, here's the thing. Taking responsibility as a leader, it's not just about saying like, yep, that's on me. I got it. It's on me. It's about the culture that you want to create when you do that. So when you step up, even for mistakes that you didn't directly cause, most of these you did not directly cause, you're doing something really big, okay? Because you're creating a covering. You're saying to your team, I've got this. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. So you're being a buffer. You're the person who takes the heat so that everyone else can breathe. They can pick themselves up after a mistake and they can get back to doing their job. And here's what's cool and kind of magical. When you model that, your team starts acting differently too. So they stop tiptoeing around their mistakes. They stop pointing fingers at each other. They start owning their work. They speak up when things aren't clear before they make a mistake. And they even will take risks because they know that you're not going to panic. You're not going to freak out. You're not going to blame them, even when bumps come along the way, because that is just inevitable. So now picture the opposite. The leader who deflects, who blames, who makes excuses. What kind of culture does that create? Have you been in that culture before? I'm confident that you have. Most of us as leaders, we want to be leaders in a certain way to not be the leader that we had, to be the leader we wish we had. So that leader who deflects, blames, what kind of culture does that create? Fear, stress, hiding, covering, protecting yourself. Instead of reaching your potential best work, you play it safe. And everyone's miserable or ends up miserable. Taking executive responsibility like this, it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it is. I'm not going to pretend that it is. It's uncomfortable. It can be scary. Like we said before, it can feel unfair, but it is the secret sauce for a team that thrives. And mistakes still happen. Of course, right? They're still going to happen, but how your team responds to those mistakes changes completely. Not only how they respond, but their rate of recovery. So the bounce back is quicker. They bring solutions instead of excuses. They trust each other, they trust you. And this is it. This is what builds high performing, resilient teams. All right, let's get practical because mindset without action is just theory. We're not here for theory. It's not what I do. So here's what living out ownership actually looks like in real time. So imagine this: you are sitting at your desk, typing that email after something just went really wrong. And your first instinct is to explain or justify or shift blame, maybe just ever so slightly, just a little, so it doesn't land entirely on you. And there's a little voice that whispers in your head, it's saying, I wasn't the problem. I wasn't there. They should have done XYZ. So when you're responding, when you're sitting there, you're going to pause. You're going to take a breath. And that's the exact moment you're going to ask yourself, what is responding like this going to accomplish? If the answer has to do with you, your reputation, how you feel about the situation, your sense of identity, then lean on the backspace, friend, and just get to the solution. So this reminds me of a story Danny Meyer tells. I mentioned Danny Meyer earlier. He's a very successful restaurateur. And early in his restaurant career, he was at a restaurant called Union Square Cafe. And he talks about this scene where a guest was at his restaurant, like a very fancy group of investment bankers, and they were dining. And the guest requested a Chardonnay. And Danny Meyer remembered thinking, I know exactly what I'm going to get him, because he had all this wine training and he was going to bring him this beautiful Chardonnay, which was a white Burgundy. And he was going to bring it to him and everyone was going to think he was amazing and all these things. So he brings it to him and the guest says, "That's not a Chardonnay." And Danny Meyer says, "Oh yeah, it's a Chardonnay." And they go back and forth. "No, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is." Back and forth, right? All this arguing. And Meyer felt the urge, right, to explain a white Burgundy by definition is made from Chardonnay grapes, but it didn't matter, right? Because the guest did not want it. He rejected it. So Meyer went back and he thought a little bit more about it, and he brought a different bottle, a significantly cheaper, less impressive bottle that just said on it Sonoma Chardonnay. And the guest said, "Now that's a Chardonnay." So what Danny Meyer learned is that even though he was right, that was irrelevant, right? The problem at hand wasn't Danny's wine knowledge being questioned or threatened. It was that this guest wanted something specific and he was not getting it. And Danny's job was to listen to what he wanted and get it for him, right? To find a solution. It wasn't about Danny's knowledge or skill or being right or wrong or blaming the guest for not knowing his wines. It was about listening to what the customer wanted and serving it to him. Ownership doesn't mean taking the blame for everything. It means taking responsibility for what's yours. The communication, the clarity, the systems, the expectations, the follow-up with your team. And here's what it sounds like in a Better Conversations leader language. It could sound like, "I'm so sorry that happened." Or, "I'm sorry I didn't get back to you until now." Notice how that one isn't, "I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you until now. I had XYZ," or "I lost track of it doesn't matter. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you until now." Done. It could sound like, "I could have had clearer expectations," or "I should have checked in sooner," or "I need to clarify priorities so that this doesn't happen again." So do you see how that feels? It feels different. There isn't this drama attached to it. There aren't excuses. It's just honesty and it's clarity and it's forward motion. And here's the beauty of it. Accountability doesn't disappear when you lead this way. It actually becomes stronger because if you are responsible for the clarity, then your team needs to be responsible for the execution. And when you own your piece, it's easier for your team to own theirs because you've modeled what accountability looks like without all this fear attached to it. And when they don't, right? Like when they don't follow through with the execution, it's easier for you to address. Friend, here's the line that I keep coming back to, okay? The level of greatness you lead others to will never exceed the ownership you are willing to take. That hit me in one of those real humbling, gut-punching moments in my own leadership. The kind that it stings a little, but that feeling, it just never leaves you. I realized my team could only go as far as I was willing to step up. My ceiling had become their ceiling. And the truth is, greatness in a team doesn't start with how they perform. It starts with you. It starts with how you show up. And if you have been leading from self preservation lately, typing that email filled with excuses, dodging responsibility, protecting your ego, hear me, friend, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. It means you're ready to step up to next level your leadership. So, here's what I want you to think about this week, okay? I want you to notice one place where you're tempted to protect yourself, one moment where you wanted to blame or defend, and instead just take the ownership. Because here's the thing, your team can only rise as high as you're willing to take responsibility. So step up, take ownership, and watch what happens. Watch what they do. And friend, after you do that, or actually before you do that, don't forget to go to heycarolist.com/newsletter to get the third best newsletter in the whole world. Yes, I think that the newsletter has gotten better since we've been chatting here. And I will see you in your inbox on Thursday with that newsletter and back here next week. Friend, remember, I can say these things to you because I have personally experienced them. These are my battles. These are my struggles in my leadership that I am just so happy to share with you because 10 years ago, I wish someone had said this to me. But this is not to condemn you. This is to cheer you on. And remember, that's what I'm here to do. Always cheering you on. Okay, friend, until next time, take care. Bye.